Good morning, Rabotai. The Shulchan Aruch writes in Siman Reish Lamed Hey, going back to the halachot that we were discussing before Rosh Chodesh. He talks over here about the zman of kriyat shema of Arvit. So we know that besides the mitzvah of praying 3 times a day, there's also a separate mitzvah d'oraita, to say shema in the morning, 1 time in the morning and 1 time in the evening, right? And the mitzvah is learned out from the pasuk that says when you lie down and when you wake up. And the Chachamim understood that when you lie down is talking about the evening, when it's dark outside, when it's the time of tzedek kochavim, when it's the time of nightfall. And if it's before that time, it's not considered the time of lying down, and therefore you cannot be yotzeh saying shema earlier than that point. So the Shulchan Aruch writes, zman kriyat shema balayla mishat yitziat shlosha kochavim ketanim. It's the time when 3 stars come out in the sky. You have to wait until, if you can't see any stars, you have to wait until the safek goes out of your heart. And we already have a set time for that, as we'll explain in a second. If a person read Shema before this point, let's say at Shkia or after Plag, he'll have to read it again once it's nightfall, once he ascertained that it's nightfall without the brachot, and that's the way to do it. Now, even though a person can pray Arvit earlier, we said according to the Shitat of Rabbi Yehuda after Plag, can pray during Ben Hashemashot, which is after sunset, right? But the mitzvah of kriyat shema, a person is not going to be yotzeh until it is nightfall. The Mishnah Berurah brings over here that a person, if he knows what time Shkia was, then he should wait the shiur of 4 mil, which is the zman of Rabbeinu Tam, before saying Shema. That's the opinion of the Mishnah Berurah. It says it's 72 minutes. You should wait until 72 minutes after sunset in order to say Shema of the evening Shema in order to be yotzeh the mitzvah d'oraita. However, the Rav Vadia argues. Rav Vadia brings that we are noheg like the Geonim, like the other way to calculate nightfall, which Tzeit Kochavim is 13 and a half seasonal minutes after Shkia, and at that time already a person can say Kriyat Shema Shel Arvit. It comes out now at this time of the year a little later because of the longer days and the longer hours of the day. Because it's the summertime, it comes out a little longer, closer to 20-25 minutes. But at that point, a person can say Shema and be yotzeh the mitzvah d'oraita, according to the opinion of the Geonim. However, we know that there is a chumrah that Rav Vadia holds of, that anytime it's a mitzvah d'oraita, a person should try to be machmir for the shita of Rabbeinu Tam. For example, Motzei Shabbat, Rav Vadia is very well known. He says Ra'ui. It's a very good thing to do, is to keep Rabbeinu Tam when Shabbat is over, to keep Rabbeinu Tam for Yom Kippur, which is also d'oraita. So Kriyat Shema, which is also d'oraita, there is also a chumrah, a nice stringency to try to say Kriyat Shema of the evening at after 72 minutes after zman of Rabbeinu Tam. Now that doesn't mean that a person needs to pray Arvit at that time. He doesn't have to wait till today's Rabbeinu Tam is 9:40. It's late. It's very late. A person doesn't want to necessarily pray Arvit that late. He wants to get his night started. It's a little bit late to pray Arvit for certain people, and so that means that you can pray earlier, either after Plag or after Shkia or after the zman of the Geonim. Say Shema then. You're yotzeh according. If you prayed after the Geonim, you're yotzeh according to that shita, according to the Geonim, which is the halacha, which is the ikar halacha. If a person prayed before that point, let's say at Shkia, or he prayed before even after Plag, then he has to just repeat Shema after nightfall. And once you're repeating Shema, repeat it after the zman of Rabbeinu Tam in order to be yotzeh all the dayot and get the chumrah of Rabbeinu Tam. A person can also do this right before he goes to sleep. He says Shema anyways, say the full Shema. Just the only thing you have to keep in mind over there is that you have to have in mind before saying Shema that I want to fulfill the mitzvah d'oraita of saying Shema or Malchut Shamayim, Yichud Hashem, and all the other kavanot the person's supposed to have. So usually when a person's saying Kriyat Shema, you might be, more often than not, a person's already half asleep. So that's just something to keep in mind. If a person prays earlier and he didn't say Shema later in the evening and now he's already on his bed, if he prayed earlier, you have to just keep in mind, I have to now be yotzeh the mitzvah d'oraita of Kriyat Shema, which I wasn't yotzeh earlier, according to the halacha at least. Our opinions that hold you are, according to Rabbi Yehuda you are, but the halacha follows the chachamim, regarding this especially, that Shulchan Aruch paskins, you have to wait until nightfall. So therefore, it's something that a person has to be conscious of, either to say Shema after 9 o'clock today, let's say, or after, if the Rabbeinu Tam is, let's say, after 9:40, and then say it again right before going to sleep, but nothing to do with the chiyuv. The chiyuv already you would say after you said Shema earlier. And if a person is not going to do that, he's just going to wait for Kriyat Shema Limita, he has to make sure to be conscious that he's doing right now the mitzvah, and should have that in mind before saying the Kriyat Shema Limita, the Shema and the Kriyat Shema Limita. We're continuing in Siman Reish Lamed Hey. We discussed yesterday the halachot of kriyat shema Ravit. So two interesting points I wanted to just add. The Bir Halacha, in the same seif over here, he writes, he brings over here Maisa Rav that holds that it's better to pray Arvit bizmana biyachid if he's not able to get 10 people by the time of kriyat shema. It's unbelievable chidush. He holds that because the mitzvah of saying kriyat shema of Arvit is from Tzete Kochavim, from nightfall, he says it's better to pray b'yechidut at the right time than to pray earlier, let's say after plag or after shkia. That's what he writes. That's what the Bir Halacha brings down. However, the Yekut Yosef argues and he holds no, it's always better to pray with a minyan, even if the minyan is praying at a b'di'evet time, so to speak, by praying Arvit earlier after plag, and that's the minyan that he has to pray. And of course, it's better to pray with a minyan than to pray b'yechidut. Another point that we spoke about yesterday is relying on the kriyat shema of al-mitah to say to be yotzeh if a person prayed earlier, and then he's going to say kriyat shema before he goes to sleep. The full kriyat shema he can have in mind at that time to fulfill the mitzvah of kriyat shema shel Arvit as well, and knock out two birds with one stone. However, the Or Tzion brings down that even if a person has in mind to say by kriyat shema of al-mitah to be yotzeh his chiyuv of saying shema, al pi Kabbalah there's a separate chiyuv to say shema before going to sleep, besides the kriyat shema Arvit, and therefore lechatchila tov, lechatchila lachush, to say kriyat shema for the chiyuv by itself, and then say kriyat shema al-mitah. So there is an inyan al pi Kabbalah, according to the Or Tzion, to, like we said yesterday, first of all, practically a person usually when he's saying kriyat shema al-mitah, he's not being mechaven as much to fulfill the mitzvah of kriyat shema. Yes, so that's one thing he has to do. And even if he has the kavanah, at the end of the day, there's a separate chiyuv al pi Kabbalah to say kriyat shema before going to sleep, and there's a separate mitzvah to say shema at night. So that's another reason why a person should try to separate the two, and try to say shema whenever it gets dark, whenever nightfall hits, and then say kriyat shema again before going to sleep. So that's just a second reason to do, besides a practical reason, but also because al pi Kabbalah it's supposed to be done at a separate time.